from Carolyn presenting her thesis titled, "The Role of the American Government in the Forever Chemical Crisis."
Health is essential to sustainable development. Healthy people are crucial for the economic and social development of any country. Investing in health is not just an expenditure, it's an investment in the future. A quote from Ban Ki-moon, former United Nations Secretary General. "We live in a biologically developed time, possessing the ability to create compounds and chemicals that save lives, extend life expectancies, and make our daily lives more convenient. However, with this ability also comes repercussions. Some common use synthetic substances that were initially seen as helpful to humankind are now understood to harbor underlying effects that are damaging to human health, wildlife, and ecosystems. Some of the most prevalent chemicals that fall into this category are per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances, more commonly referred to as PFAs. PFAs, discovered in the late 1930s, were put into mass production by the 1940s. PFAs were and are commonly favored by manufacturers for their convenient properties, such as being anti-stick, water repellent, anti-grease, and highly durable. These chemicals are able to achieve these properties on account of their carbon-fluorine bond, one of the strongest chemical bonds. The electronegativity of fluorine does not allow other elements to break it from carbon and instead repels them. This inertness makes these products non-stick and requires extremely specific and intense energy to be broken. The strength of this bond causes these products to not naturally degrade over time, but rather persist in the environment, earning them the name forever chemicals. The durabilities of PFA poses a significant danger to human health as they enter and accumulate in our bodies over time. They enter through various pathways, including contaminated drinking water, food packaging, cosmetics, fabrics, and contaminated air. One report by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey found PFAs in the blood of 97% of Americans. Yet most American citizens and consumers are unfamiliar with these chemicals, and even fewer understand the dangers they expose themselves to every day. Scientific studies have provided sufficient evidence for the dangers of certain PFAs, such that the United States Congress would be constitutionally justified in taking serious legislative action to reduce or even eliminate the distribution and consumption of products containing these PFAs. A precedent for a legal response to the PFA crisis has been well established by other Western countries. Since the invention of PFAs, scientists have been questioning and testing their effects. As more evidence is being compiled, tested, and validated, the danger of PFAs is becoming nearly indisputable. Research on PFAs has revealed effects on many differing bodily functions, such as decreased fertility, increased blood pressure, increased cholesterol levels, disrupted childhood development, increased risk of thyroid disease, increased risk of multiple cancers, and much more. Some of the most well-researched and compelling studies concerning the dangers that PFAs pose specifically regard women's reproductive health and thyroid health. A study published in 2022 from the School of Public Health of China presents a systematic review and meta-analysis of the effects of PFAs on female fertility. The objective of this review was to address and solve contradictory associations between PFAs and female fertility, in order to conclude whether these associations can be confirmed or denied based on previously published articles related to the topic. Analysis concluded that higher exposure levels of PFAs are associated with lower chances of conception, as well as being linked to an increased risk of infertility. This health-endangering discovery exemplifies the urgent need for implementation of legislation to protect women's health in order to ensure the well-being of future American generations. The Lancet, an esteemed medical journal, published a similar report in late 2023 that synthesized recent findings on the connections between PFA exposure and thyroid cancer. Analysis of the data pointed to, quote, strong associations between exposure to PFAs and an increased rate of papillary thyroid cancer. Higher levels of PFOs, a type of PFA, are associated with an increased risk of thyroid cancer, end quote. The extensive amounts of scientific research conducted on PFAs have conclusively demonstrated their potential danger to American citizens' health. This danger to the American public can no longer go unchecked. It is imperative that the United States federal government take more action to ensure the safety and well-being of the American people. Governing documents, such as the preamble to the United States Constitution, spell out the federal government's duties. In review of the preamble, we can see the government's role to, quote, promote the general welfare, end quote. Made simply, the welfare of the people refers to the well-being and prosperity of American society over multiple aspects, such as public health, safety, morality, and peace. In order to secure the public's health and safety, the United States federal government employs many differing governmental agencies to regulate and enforce legislation. These government institutions include the Environmental Protection Agency, more commonly referred to as the EPA, which regulates chemical substances and mixtures found in the environment, drinking water, pesticides, cleaning products, and textiles. The broad range of PFAs, combined with the specificity of these agencies' jurisdictions, makes legislation and/or restriction of these chemicals challenging. The EPA currently enforces numerous laws and acts, of which a handful relate to the management and regulation of PFAs. While there are no laws written directly regarding PFAs, some pre-existing laws have broad spans under which PFAs fall, indicating that some regulation over PFAs is legislated. However, this legislation is broad and does not enforce any significant standards to protect the American public. The PFA crisis falls under the responsibility of the federal government. It should be handled to the effect of additional legislation in order to ensure the safety of the American people. A precedent for a legal response to the PFA crisis has been well established by other Western countries. Historically, European nations have been known to impose stricter regulation regarding chemicals in comparison to the United States. While these stricter regulations might seem bothersome to some Americans, they are ultimately aimed at ensuring the public's safety and overall well-being. Countries within the European Union have recently taken significant action against PFAs as an entity as well as individually. The United States has strong relationships with numerous European Union members, multiple of whom would be considered close allies and like-minded nations. Considering American citizen similarities in regards to lifestyle with these Western countries, it is worth exploring how similar regulations can be applied within the United States. These countries' reasoning for regulation, citizen reaction, and economic reaction can all be valuable resources when determining what specific legislation to draft and enforce. The European Union published its strategy for sustainability towards a toxic-free environment in October of 2020, which includes its plan to entirely phase out PFAs except in extremely necessary areas. While it is not advisable that the United States follow every action of our European allies, the noticeable concern over PFAs by other countries should prompt the United States to take action by acknowledging the magnitude of the danger at hand and protecting its citizens through legislation. Some people may argue that the issue of legislation over PFAs and similar substances should be left to individual states. They argue that state legislation can target and address more specific sources of contamination within state borders. By allowing states to develop their own legislation, voters and legislators can create specialized solutions that would be more effective for their conditions. While this argument for state-level regulation has merit in its appraisal of state powers, it overlooks the benefit of federal regulation. Federal oversight ensures a baseline for protection for all states. Individual states have varying degrees of concern and therefore varied legislature. For example, states such as Maine have presented 14 bills and enacted 6 strict laws in regards to PFAs, while states such as Missouri have presented no such bill and imposed no such law. Although more minor issues certainly should be handled by the states, the magnitude of the effects of PFAs and the dangers they present should call for direct federal action. Scientific studies have provided sufficient evidence for the dangers of certain PFAs such that the United States Congress would be constitutionally justified in taking serious legislative action to reduce or even eliminate the distribution and consumption of products containing these PFAs. A precedent for a legal response to the PFA crisis has been well established by other Western countries. While the task of legislation is in the hands of Congress, individuals concerned about PFAs can take action to promote both their own and the general public's health. To protect your own health, investigate the ingredients of products you regularly consume and see if any safer alternatives are available. Keep up with research and findings regarding PFAs to better inform yourself and those close to you. Become involved in an advocacy group and reach out to state representatives. Use your vote wisely. Vote for politicians who take your safety seriously and intend to represent your values. Additional actions, such as signing petitions and joining in peaceful protests, are some more involved measures you can take if this issue is highly significant to you. The topic of safety regarding PFAs is essential to Americans who value their own health, the health of their fellow citizens, and the health of future generations. The health of the American people determines the country's future flourishing and development. Thank you.